Hello my lovelies and welcome back to my channel. I'm Heather and this is the happenings with H.A.P. So we've reached the final video of my 2021 reading journey. That is because we are going to reveal my top 10 books of 2021. If you've been watching any of my past videos about reading in 2021, you probably have a guess on what some of these books will be. I'll be honest, I wanted to go with like books I rated 5 stars, and in 2020 I had like a lot of 5 stars, so I had to narrow it down to 12. This year, not so much. I actually had to include a reread on the list just because I didn't have 10 and I wasn't going to do 9 because that's like a very odd number. So it's 10. Try to do a book a month. That didn't always happen because some months I did not have 5-star books. Some I had more than one. So it's kind of like all over the place. I am going to be going in reading order, not in any type of rank system. These are literally just the order that I read them in. I hope you guys stick around and I hope some of your favorites are on this list, and it'll be very interesting if some of your least favorites are also on this list because I know a couple of these books are very controversial likes. So yeah, let's get started. So the first book on my list that was a 5-star read in 2021 was actually a reread for me, and it is The Book of Lost Things by Connolly. I consider this one of my favorite books of all time, if not the favorite book of all time, and this was the first time I'd read it in years, and I actually did an entire, I filmed an entire reading vlog for this that I have yet to release. I still have the footage, and I took notes down too because it is very complex, so it is a video I want to post eventually, though that footage will be from 2021 when I lived in my old apartment. But I really do love this one. This is an adult, very dark fairy tale. It deals with a lot of things that I will get into in that review video, but it is probably one of my most recommended books because not many people have read it. And I know it's not popular on BookTube at all or Book Talk because it is an older novel. It's like 2001 or something like that it was released. I can't really remember, but it's pretty old. But it is one I rarely recommend because there's a lot to unpack in it. It was still just as great of a read as before, and as I was reading it I realized how also fucked up of a read it is. So if you like really twisted fairy tales that go really dark, and you like protagonists that are children, because the protagonist David is a young child, but it is not a YA novel whatsoever, you will like this novel. So once again, I will implore my subscribers to please read this book because it is pretty crazy. I'm sure the audiobook's probably good. I honestly don't know. I read this in print, but I really, really recommend this one. The next book I read that was a 5-star for me was You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I mean, look at the cover. Like, it just makes you want to smile, and that's kind of how I felt reading this book. The book follows Liz, who is a very bright student who wants to be a doctor one day, and she was hoping that her music skills were going to get her a scholarship to Pennington College, but unfortunately that falls through. So she decides to join the court in trying to be prom queen because if she gets prom queen, she will get a scholarship to college. Liz is such a great character, and all of her friend group are also really awesome. It's just kind of a story about like finding your people and finding out who you are as a person and where you fit into the world, and that it might not always be what you thought. There's a really delightful little romance in this, and then there also kind of explores like friendship breakups, which can be as traumatizing as romantic relationship breakups, and it just covers all these topics really well. Like I said, you kind of just end with a smile on your face. I expected to enjoy this book. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. I read the audiobook and it was fantastic. I highly recommend. I do need to read Leah Johnson's other works. I know she had a book that released in 2021. I haven't gotten to read it yet. It's definitely going to be on my list because I just really, really enjoyed this one a lot. The next book on my list was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown, and this is the first in a series. I am actually currently reading the second book in the series. It follows Malik and Karina. Malik is a refugee. Karina is a princess going to be queen of Zeran, and it involves magic and African folklore. It was just really well done, and it's told in dual POV perspectives from Karina and Malik, and there's just so much to really like about about this book. I do have a full breakdown in my February wrap-up where I go a bit more into detail of the plot. I didn't really have much experience with African folklore, but I did find it really fascinating as I was reading this, and I really liked the magic system and how it kind of connected to the mythos that was going on in this world of this novel. Like I said, I am reading the second novel. It's going a little slow at the moment, but I'm hoping that is going to be as good as this one because I just really enjoyed it because it was something different. I like fantasy a lot, but this was a different type of fantasy and covered like different mythos. So that was really cool to read. And I really enjoyed Malik as a character and Karina as a character. Like they both were very strong and had their own character drives that were very vastly different from each other. And it is very much like a wrong side of the tracks and kind of a budding romance, but not really. So I'm curious where this series is going to go. I believe it's only supposed to be a duology. I'm excited to see where this world is going to go because if it's anything like the first book, I think I'm really going to love it. And it might be one of my new favorite series if it continues as good as I think it's going to be. The next book I read was in March, and it's no surprise what it is and the fact that it is on this list, and that is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare, the second book in the Last Hours trilogy. If you don't know already, I don't know how, because I feel like I mentioned it in every video, I am a Shadowhunter bitch. I love the Shadowhunter world. I did an entire reading vlog on this book, so if you want to see me go through it, you can watch it. I absolutely adore it, and I can't wait for the third one. The third one's not supposed to be till the end of the year, till the end of this year, I think, and I will probably do another video of like trying to figure out the plot based on synopsis and the cover reveal. So I adore the Shadowhunters. Like it's it's really funny because honestly, when I first started reading them, the Mortal Instruments, they were okay, but like every subsequent series in the world that she writes, I just like love more and more. So like I'm just freaking obsessed with Shadowhunters. I'm gonna be so sad when it eventually is over in a couple years, but if you're not on that train, I'm sorry you're not. I suggest it. It's one of my guilty pleasures. I don't care. I absolutely adore it. And if you're gonna read any of them, I mean, the Infernal Devices trilogy is still my favorite of all the Shadowhunter books, but every single trilogy has new characters that I love. It's kind of wild. Do you need to read the other books before you read them? Yes. Do you need to read Chain of Gold before you read Chain of Iron? Yes. It helps with the mythos. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say you can't. I'd like to do more Shadowhunter videos in the future on this channel. So if you have suggestions for something you'd like to see in the Shadowhunter world, let me know. I might also do it on TikTok. We'll see, because I have a TikTok now. So yeah, love this book. 5 stars. I can't remember the last time I have not given a Shadowhunter novel a 5-star. Of course, I'd be obsessed with this one. Next book on my list was Fat Chance Charlie Vega by Crystal Maldonado. I don't know why I love this one so much. I kind of know why. I really connected to the main character, Charlie, because she is plus size. I'm not Latina, of course, but she is plus size and just kind of navigating the world in a plus size body and with relationships and having very pretty friends who are thin. Like, I related to so much of her struggles in this book, and like the romance is really cute. The relationship she has with her best friend is really awesome. Like there's so many great things, and I would love more books from her point of view. I know Crystal Maldonado is releasing another book this year that is not related to this character, but I would love more from this character because I just thought she was really great. And it's a really body positive YA romance, and I feel like at least recently, I've been seeing a bit more books with plus size characters in them that are YA. So that's really awesome to see because it is rare, especially YA lit. I just love this, and I just keep having to give it praise. It was on my most anticipated list of 2021, and it definitely lived up to those expectations for sure. Kind of surpassed them, actually, if I'm being honest. The next book was a multi-year anticipated read because I had put it on my TBR and then like would read other things and forgot about it, but it was on my TBR for a while. And that is Well Met by Jen DeLuca, which is the first in like this whole Renaissance fair contemporary romantic book series. And I just love it. This is an enemies to lovers story, and it is so fantastic. The love scenes are very steamy. The plot's really fun. The character's likable. I find in some contemporary romances that the main character is just, you know, it's always a very, I'm not like other girls type of character, and I just can't stand that because that's a trope unto itself. But I didn't think that way with Emily at all, and I actually haven't thought that way with any of the characters in any of the series of these books. And if you like Renaissance fairs and like small town, like everyone's in your business type of stories, like this is it. This is great. I absolutely loved it. So worth the wait and the hype. And she's going to be releasing, I think, the 4th in the series this year. Not sure who it's about yet, because each book is about a different set of couples that end up together. So if you want fluffy, sexy, fun, contemporary romance, like this series is fantastic, and the first book is like a great lead into it. Can't recommend it enough. Next book I've been talking about for a while too, of how much I loved it, and unexpectedly so, is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I know in my wrap up from 2021 for the spring and summer when I mentioned this book, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that when I first saw the cover, I didn't know much about it, and I thought it was like a comic just based on the cover, but it's not. It is like a full-fledged YA novel, but it is so good. The world that is created and the magic system is really interesting, and I absolutely loved the main romance between Yadriel and Julian. It was so beautiful. It was just so well done. And Yadriel is a trans boy. It explores that because Yadriel comes from a family of brujos, and because he identifies as a man, as a boy, he wants to be a brujo, not a bruja, but obviously because of gender norms that are very prominent in his family still wants him to be a bruja and do bruja things, which are the more womanly type of magic. And he's already done the ritual to become a brujo, and it ends up causing problems in the form of Julian, who is dead and is actually a ghost that Yadriel and others in his family would be able to see. And so it's kind of this really fun trying to hide that you did something wrong. And obviously Yadriel and Julian start to have feelings for each other. And then the whole plot revolves around how did Julian die and finding out more about Julian's life because he was kind of the bad boy in school. So like there's so many layers to this, and the mystery is really interesting, and what ends up happening is also really interesting. This was like such a surprise for me, and like I read this thing, like I sped through it. It was so good. And I was originally going to wait for like a more fall spooky time read, and this would be great for that, but honestly you can read this whenever. I really enjoyed it. It does take place around the Day of the Dead, so that'd be a great time to read it if you're looking to read it. I just highly recommend this book. It's a wonderful love story. It's a really cool mystery. So many layers to this. I really hope that it gets like adapted, because I think this would be an amazing either movie or series. The next book on my list is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, and her other book, Red, White, and Royal Blue, made my list for 2020 as one of my favorites, and this one didn't disappoint at all. It follows August, who has just moved to New York and is trying to get her bearings, and Jane, whom she meets on the Q train, and Jane just so happens to be from the 70s, while August is from the present day. And of course, besides the fact of trying to figure out how this phenomenon happened, August and Jane start to fall for each other. And I feel like everything I loved about Red, White, and Royal Blue was also in this. The friends that surround August are like this just fantastic group of random characters that are just so great, of a friend group. The romance was really great. And then also just August like has this other subplot about finding out what happened to like her uncle, I believe it was. It was just such a fun little read. If I had gun to my head, had to rank the two against each other, I would probably go with Red, White, and Royal Blue a smidge more, but I still really love this one. This was a 5-star for me, and it's just so sweet and so funny, and I can't wait for Casey McQuiston's next novel, because she has another one coming out this year. So I really hope she's the type that just has a book every year, because I will read her work consistently, because she has not disappointed me yet. I just really love her books, and I really, really recommend this one. It is as good as people say. Next book on my list is probably the big controversial one, because people were very split on whether they loved or hated this book. I personally loved it, and it is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, I will say that in the canon that I've read of Taylor Jenkins Reid, it does not come close to Seven Husbands or Daisy Jones. I'd rank this below that. However, I still really enjoyed this. I really liked the dual timeline perspectives of watching the beginnings of the Riva family and just how much of a douchebag their dad was, and then, you know, seeing how they interact with each other now. I think a big reason people didn't like this one is that, I mean, not much really does happen if you count out the past storyline. And also, like, all of these characters are pretty terrible to each other. And it's a dysfunctional family that really doesn't have much outside of each other, despite on the surface it seems like they should and do, but they don't. And it's just like the sibling bond of them together and, you know, having the fucked up origin story that they have. It doesn't really have much to say. Daisy Jones had something to say. Evelyn Hugo had something to say. This really doesn't. It's just kind of characters that are. And I'm guessing that's why a lot of people didn't like it, or some of the reasons. I'm sure the hype didn't help either, but I really enjoyed it. I found it very engaging. I didn't see the twist at the end coming, but I thought it was handled very realistically. It felt like something that could actually happen. I think that's why I very much enjoyed it, because it is technically like historical fiction. If you look at the entertainers that these characters are modeled after, I'm sure you'd probably find a lot of skeletons that are very similar to this family. So I enjoyed it. I really loved it. I don't think I've ever ranked any of Taylor's books that I've read under 5 stars. I don't think I have. Like, I just very much love her writing. I love her character development, her world building. I just can't wait to see what she writes next. Like, I hope it's another historical fiction, because that seems to be her bread and butter right now, just because they're some of her biggest hits. So yeah, I just really, really love her, and I can't wait to see what she comes out with next. And the last book that was my 5-star read, it was also like in December, so it was like a good way to kind of end the year. And that was The Nobleman's Guide to Scandals and Shipwrecks by Mackenzi Lee. And it is the 3rd and final book in the Montague siblings trilogy. I've loved this series for so long, and I'm very, very sad to see that it's ended. But this was like a perfect way to wrap things up. This one follows Adrian, who is the younger brother of Monty and Felicity, who are the 2 protagonists in the other books in the series, and his journey basically to find out what happened to his mother when she died. He thinks that it's something a bit bigger than it was and more mythological, and he somehow ropes Monty in and also ropes Felicity in. And it just was really great. It was great to see all these characters interacting with each other. Like, seeing Monty as like this guy veering towards middle age is just amazing. And, you know, Felicity doing her own thing, and then Adrian just kind of being exposed to these people that he didn't even know existed, let alone that he had other siblings at all. And the epilogue was delightful. Like, it was a really great way to kind of round out this series, and makes me happy that these characters are happy and are living happily. You know, I'm gonna miss these characters and miss being with this family and in this world, but I know everything has to end. I'm very curious what Mackenzi Lee will write next. All of these books in the series were, I believe, 5 stars for me, so I haven't read anything else she's done. Any of the original work that she writes again, I definitely am looking forward to reading. So yeah, I'm just very sad to see this group go, but I thought it was a really good way and a very satisfying way to end the trilogy. I'm super hoarse. I've been talking for so long, but that was my top 10 books of 2021. All were 5-star reads. I loved them all. Were any of these your guys' favorites? If they were, let me know down below. If they were not your favorites, I also want to know, and let me know down below, because I love differing opinions. And if you want to see some of my bottom reads of 2021, that was the video I posted previously, and you can find it up here. Say goodbye to 2021 officially, even though it is February. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.